going on, Nerd Squad, and welcome back to Top 10 Nerd. The Red Skull, aka Johann Schmidt, made his first debut back in Captain America Comics issue 7, all the way back in 1941. And the Red Skull has been a pretty powerful villain in the MCU as well. Now he's like the keeper of the Soul Stone. He's forced to clock in and out on Vormir, just waiting for somebody to come along. But what other evil deeds did he get up to in the comics? I'm Taylor McWatters, and here are the top 10 worst things that Red Skull has done. Kicking off the list at number 10. DELL RUSK. Once upon a time, the Red Skull actually weaseled his way into the position of US Secretary of Defense. Except this time, he was using the identity of DELL RUSK. This begins in Avengers Volume 3, Issue 65. So DELL RUSK decided to develop and test this biological weapon at Mount Rushmore. It's this horrible dust that really does a lot of damage to all the hikers. Everybody just out there enjoying their day. I mean, it's midday, one of the most beautiful places in the world, and DELL RUSK just destroys this entire area. Kids are coughing in cars, people can't see where they're driving. It's honestly madness. Now, this dust was actually a flesh-eating virus that left burns all over your skin. It got so bad that the Avengers had to suit up in hazmat suits. And then in the next issue, in the Red Zone Part 2, Black Panther beat him up so badly that he broke Red Skull's jaw right in half. That's more than fair considering the hysteria you've caused. And before we go on to number 9, if you guys could go ahead and give us a thumbs up on this video, it does magical wonders for our page. It's really helpful. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for supporting. Now back to the list on Red Skull. Number 9. Ultimate Red Skull. Making his debut in the Ultimate Comics, Avengers 1, back in 2009, Ultimate Red Skull is a little different than the Red Skull we know from our main continuity. He's actually the son of Steve Rogers and Gail Richards. They even hid him and trained him to become the next Captain America. It's wild. The Ultimates are insane. So he always feared that he would never live up to his father's expectations. I mean, fair. And then at just age 17, he took out all these doctors and soldiers around him in the military, and now he was in charge, and now his new goal was planning a way out. He then got the haunting look by using a kitchen knife and carving his head, which is just lovely. There you go. That's a nice image for you all on this lovely day. Number 8, Streets of Poison. This next one goes down during Captain America issue 376 to 378, when Red Skull had initially offered up an alliance with Kingpin. But why? Well, because there was this narcotic that the Red Skull was trying to bring into New York, but Wilson Fisk refused to work with somebody like the Red Skull. So now we got two villains not cooperating with each other, so next comes a full-on drug war. Now, luckily, Kingpin took down Red Skull. I mean, when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, even Spider-Man struggles with Kingpin, so of course he's doomed. Big fists, it's like Donkey Kong. So he went down, and Kingpin actually spared his life on the condition that he just stays away from his territory. What are you, Walter White? Don't bring that stuff in here, get out of here. I'm the one who knocks you out. Bam, Kingpin. Number 7, Mother Superior. After the Red Skull's revival, he figured he needed to start a family. Well, rather, he just figured he needed an heir to his evil throne after he retires. So he fathered a daughter on Exile Island to a washerwoman. Sadly, she didn't make it after the birth, but Johann raised this young daughter in this mansion called the Skull House. Clever name, I get it. Skull, Red Skull, nice. But because this is the Red Skull, it wasn't an ordinary life at all. See, through advanced biological means, he made it so she would become an adult in a very short period of time. And of course, if that wasn't already hectic enough, he set her up with some superpowers. That daughter being appropriately named Sin, short for Cynthia Schmidt. But she went on to become Mother Superior, the leader of a group called the Sisters of Sin, where other orphan girls would come along and go through the same process. You've just made a new villain. Way to go. Number 6, Seeing Red. Captain America issue 350. We have a front cover that is sure to draw you in. The supersized 350th issue. So after months of manipulation from the resurrected Red Skull, Steve Rogers confronts and defeats his replacement, John Walker. Now he also has to battle Red Skull. His hands are literally full in this issue. It's great. But at this point, it's a little tough because the Red Skull is now a cloned Steve Rogers, and that includes having the super soldier powers as well. So it's not easy. So due to his dust of death, his red mask shrunk, and now that was his permanent face. So it's the return of Red Skull in a way. So Steve may have returned the mantle of Captain America now that John Walker's out of the picture, but now we have the return of one Red Skull yet again. Number 5, Latveria. Sometimes you're not the only supervillain who's planning on taking over the world. And when you step on some other villain's toes, well, now we got a problem. Kind of similar to how we tried to be shady with Kingpin. Red Skull once took over for Dr. Doom once he was absent as their ruler of Latveria. Now, Red Skull actually tried to make this land a starting point for his end of the world plan, and when Doom got back, he wasn't pleased with how his country has been led. So much so that he actually used a shrink ray on Red Skull. You can see all this go down in issue 12 of Supervillain Team Up. It's quite fun, nice short read too. Number 4, steal Xavier's brain. Yeah, you heard me correctly. Okay, so when the cloned Red Skull wakes up in modern day, he's still got the urge, of course, to take over the world and turn the population towards mutants. He went under and the world was crazy, and then he came back up and he's like, well, I'm gonna still be crazy. And this guy loves experiments. He's super into the idea of becoming Steve Rogers, and he loves moving consciousness around into computers. And it turns out he also has a thing for stealing brains. Gross. And what other brain to steal other than the best one on the planet, the one belonging to Charles Xavier? This all goes down after the events of Avengers vs. X-Men and Uncanny Avengers issue 1. So Red Skull takes Xavier's brain to help him accomplish this task, this evil master plan. So now he's got telepathic abilities, and he uses this to force humans to attack mutants all around the world. Luckily, that part of Xavier's brain was removed, taking away his telepathic powers, because, you know, we don't want any of that. Red Skull's already bad enough. We don't want to give him that kind of brain. Number 3, GENOSHA. The Red Skull loves turning places into his own, evidently, and GENOSHA is just another place on that Schmidt list. Now, I talked about how he stole Xavier's brain, but later on in Uncanny Avengers issue 23, he turns GENOSHA into this camp, this horrible camp where he abducted numerous mutants and Inhumans. Now, the Avengers luckily escaped their captivity and rescued Magneto, and let's just say he wasn't too pleased about this whole event. The Red Skull had made these evil sidekicks that he referred to as the S-Men. Again, great name, makes absolute sense. And after using the mutant growth hormone to enhance his powers, Magneto wiped out these S-Men and then took out the Red Skull. This all seemed fine and dandy at first, but then this led to another, more powerful persona of Johann, the Red Onslaught. Now, luckily, Scarlet Witch and Doctor Doom casted a spell that allowed Professor X to reawaken in his subconscious and took control of the Red Onslaught long enough for our heroes to take him down. But I mean, anything this guy does, no matter where you go, it just ends up in something worse coming out. It's kind of like how villains work. Number 2, Hail Hydra. This next one resulted in writer Nick Spencer literally getting death threats. Fans were mostly not okay with this one at all. So back in 2016, Captain America said 2 words that would throw every comic book fan for a loop: Hail and Hydra. This all happened in Secret Wars, when Captain America's reality had been rewritten secretly by Kobik, a sentient cosmic cube acting under the influence of said Red Skull. So as a child, Steve was recruited and raised to believe in their ideology, which was, you know, the strong ruling the weak, for the good of all. Now, there's a pleasant nod to this in Avengers Endgame, where the team goes back in time to the first Avengers movie, and then we think Steve is about to lay everybody out in this elevator like he did in Winter Soldier, but a couple well-timed words made him skip the workout and simply walk out of the elevator with the scepter. Honestly, it's one of my favorite moments of Endgame. I mean, when he picks the hammer up, cool, but when he says Hail Hydra, it's just like, it's perfect. And number 1, he made Sharon kill Cap. We go back now to the Civil War comic book event where Captain America was killed by Sharon Carter. Yeah, so Crossbones sniped him. Agent 13, who at the time was also Cap's girlfriend, Sharon, she delivered the finishing bullet from a much closer angle. Well, it turns out it wasn't really Sharon who was doing this work. It was the classic brainwashing that made this defeat happen. And it's all kind of thanks to Dr. Faustus as well. See, this causes a whole chain of events. I mean, for starters, Bucky decides he should kill Iron Man, blaming him for the death of Steve Rogers. And then Falcon also goes after his own lead. And then Tony ended up showing Bucky the letter Cap wrote about how he should be the next Captain America. And Bucky agrees to take the spot, but only if he can operate solo. And to think all this came to a climax after Steve's girlfriend was the one to deliver the fatal blow, it's just heartbreaking. And then when you discover that this is all just a big plan orchestrated by the Red Skull, and you know, things start to make sense. You're like, oh, no, I get it. Well, guys, there you have it. Which of these Red Skull moments will live in your head rent-free? To be honest, I would hate for him to be toying with my brain after I go. Just leave it. Let me lie and be dead. Just let me replay REO Speedwagon songs on repeat. I mean, that's hopefully what I think the afterlife is. I hope. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in to Top 10 Nerd. I've been your host, Taylor McWatters. You've been you, and we'll see you next time.